Israeli occupation forces kill over 5 Palestinians in new massacre in Deir al-Balah, central Gaza. Occupation forces continue intensive attacks on Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. And Syrian military operations chief Ahmed al-Shara invites former vice president to attend the upcoming National Dialogue Conference. It's 4 p.m. Cairo local time and you're now watching Q News. I'm Henny Saif and we will begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Five Palestinians were killed and several others injured in an Israeli airstrike on a home in Deir al-Balah, central Gaza. According to Palestinian media, Israeli fighter jets targeted the home late last night, leaving women and children among the casualties. Rescue teams are still combing through the rubble in search of missing individuals. Israeli forces have intensified their attacks on Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, northern Gaza. Since Saturday evening, the hospital, a critical lifeline for thousands, has faced direct bombing, artillery shelling and sniper fire. The assaults have caused severe damage, endangering the lives of patients and medical staff. Israeli forces targeted a residential home in the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza, killing 4 children and their mother. Palestinian media reported that rescue teams were unable to reach the victims, who were trapped under the rubble of the collapsed building. This morning, an Israeli newspaper revealed that approximately 70% of homes and buildings in Jabalia have been destroyed by Israeli forces. Winter has arrived in Gaza, leaving nearly 2 million displaced Palestinians struggling against the wind, cold and rain. Severe shortages of blankets, warm clothing and firewood are compounding the crisis, as shelters and makeshift tents have deteriorated after months of use. The United Nations has warned that many living in these conditions may not survive the winter, noting that at least 945,000 people urgently need winter supplies, which remain out of reach for most due to soaring prices in Gaza. Health authorities in Gaza have confirmed that the Palestinian death toll from the ongoing Israeli onslaught since October 7th has surpassed 45,250, with over 107,000 injured. Officials reported that Israeli forces carried out 4 massacres against families in Gaza within the past 24 hours, killing at least 32 Palestinians and injuring 54 others. United Nations Relief and Works Agency spokesperson Adnan Abu Hasna has confirmed that Sweden's decision to cut funding for the agency will have a major impact on education across the 5 regions it operates, including Gaza. Abu Hasna emphasized the severe consequences of this financial shortfall, the education of Palestinian refugees, warning that it exacerbates the already critical living conditions in Gaza. Israeli forces have arrested at least 6 Palestinians, including a child, during a series of raids across the West Bank since yesterday evening. The arrest came amid widespread incursions and heavy-handed tactics by Israeli soldiers involving extensive searches, house demolitions, and the detention of several individuals without charge. Israeli forces have raided the town of Tamun in Tubas, northern West Bank. Palestinian media reported that Israeli forces infiltrated the town and conducted raids on 2 homes. These incursions are part of a broader and intensifying trend of Israeli military assaults in Palestinian areas over recent months. Two Palestinians were killed and several others injured in an Israeli airstrike on a gathering of citizens in the Al Burij refugee camp, central Gaza. Local media reported that the explosion caused multiple casualties, with emergency teams quickly arriving to transport the wounded to nearby hospitals. The condition of the injured is still being assessed. UNICEF has stated that children in Gaza are cold, sick, and traumatized. In a statement, the organization highlighted that hunger, malnutrition, and dire living conditions are putting children's lives at risk. Over 96% of women and children in Gaza are unable to meet their basic nutritional needs, relying mainly on rationed flour, lentils, pasta, and canned food, which are gradually weakening their health.
Humanitarian assistance has been largely unable to reach the children in need there for more than 10 weeks.
Georgios Petropoulos, head of the UN Sub-Office for Humanitarian Affairs in Gaza, has condemned Israel's denial of aid movements, calling it a violation of international humanitarian law and aid weaponization. Petropoulos emphasized that the humanitarian situation in Gaza has worsened significantly since the conflict began. He also noted that the UN's efforts have been met with indifference from the Israeli side, with the Israeli government failing to provide meaningful support for the UN's humanitarian operations in the Strip.
Inside the Gaza Strip are most often denied.
The ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to escalate, with severe shortages of food, medicine, and basic necessities. International calls for aid and the protection of civilians grow louder amid the conflict.
Intensive efforts by the U.S. administration alongside mediators from Egypt and Qatar have been underway in recent days to push forward ceasefire talks before President Joe Biden leaves office next month. U.S. officials report that both Hamas and Israel are making concessions, though key differences persist. Repeated rounds of talks over the past year have failed, with Israel insisting on maintaining a military presence in Gaza, while Hamas demands the release of detainees before agreeing to troop withdrawals. So far, no significant progress was reported. U.S. official William Burns, after a brief visit to Doha, has left the region, though a U.S. delegation remains. The change of administration in Washington now, just weeks away, is driving urgency in the discussions. Both Israel and Hamas, along with mediators in Doha, are seeking to lay the groundwork for the next phase of negotiations. Key issues still divide the parties, particularly regarding the return of nearly 2 million Palestinians displaced by Israeli military operations and who will manage Gaza's borders and oversee the distribution of humanitarian aid. Another unresolved question is the future role of a Palestinian government in post-war Gaza, as both sides weigh the possibilities for authority and governance in the region.
And for more analysis on this story, we now move to Selma in our newsroom. Selma.
Thank you, Haini. And for further analysis on the humanitarian situation in Gaza, we're joined from Ramallah by the writer and political researcher Tamara Haddad. Welcome to Q News, Ms. Haddad. And let me first ask you, is it possible to reach a ceasefire agreement in Gaza within the coming days? Ms. Tamar, can you hear me? Is it possible to reach a ceasefire agreement in Gaza within the coming few days, do you think?
Greetings to you and your viewers. In fact, right now, there is a path of negotiation in which the obstacles that are still remaining are being tackled. And I'm talking about the hostage release issue, specifically the Israeli hostages that are still captivated in Gaza. In fact, in Hamas, it appears that they do not have enough capacity to gather information or to take inventory of the hostages that are still alive or those who have died. In fact, it seems that there is no connection between the external leadership of Hamas and the internal leadership in the Gaza Strip. And so it seems that Hamas does not really have credible information regarding hostage release and their numbers. As well, there is a pending issue regarding Palestinian hostages. And there is a lot of discord whether they are going to be taking out of Gaza to Iran or where they are going to be taken.
But Ms. Haddad,
in fact,
why do you think, though, the occupation has intensified its attacks lately on the Gaza Strip recent days?
There is a multitude of reasons for that. First, to enhance the negotiation conditions and to pressure Hamas to release the Israeli hostages. In fact, they are just trying to pressure Hamas into subduing to their wishes. And right now, the Israelis are actually using more force in order once more to get Hamas to subdue and to surrender. And in the recent Israeli statements given by Netanyahu, it was evident that Netanyahu does not want to see Hamas when the next day comes, quote unquote. In fact, there is another matter here that is at play. Netanyahu wants to control and manage the Gaza Strip during the truce time. And in fact, Netanyahu, of course, does not want to see the 7th of October replicate in the future. And so he wants to demolish Hamas altogether. And right now there is a lot of negotiations taking place regarding who's going to have control over the Gaza Strip and regarding the hostage release
what do you think,
issue as well.
Also, Ms. Haddad, if you can also share with us, what do you think about the U.S. role in pressuring Israel to reach a ceasefire agreement in Gaza? What are your thoughts about that?
So first of all, the United Nations, if we're talking about the new administration or the old administration, or if we're going to focus specifically on Trump's administration, we'll find that he wants to terminate the war before he comes to office officially in January 2025. And in fact, the Americans are trying to do some measures in order to get this done. But in fact, the Israelis are still trying to remap the Middle East regarding or regardless of what the United States is doing or is attempting to do. And in fact, Israel just wants to have absolute victory. And for the Israelis and for Netanyahu specifically, he wants to demolish Hamas and to prevent them from putting their ducks back in a row in order for him to not see a replication of the 7th of October once more. And, Israel keeps on maintaining its offensives and keeps on impeding the entry of humanitarian aid. But right now, the Americans are trying to reach a comprehensive agreement in order to release all hostages from both sides. But the Israelis are not really cooperating.
And what do you think maybe about Sweden's decision to stop funding the UNRWA? What are your thoughts regarding that? Ms. Haddad, what do you think, Ms. Haddad, are you with us? I'm just trying to see what you think about Sweden's decision to stop funding the UNRWA. What are your thoughts regarding this move? Are you with us?
In fact, there is a division in the European Union and among the European states regarding the subsidy of UNRWA. There are some countries that want to keep on fund the UNRWA because of its major role it plays in supporting refugees. But right now, we see other European countries that are not really on board with that. And so we find right now some European countries refraining from subsidizing the UNRWA. And the Palestinians, whether in the West Bank or in the Gaza Strip, they are all in dire need of an agency to cater for their basic needs as refugees, internally displaced persons right now. In fact, the life of Palestinians is predicated fundamentally upon the existence of the UNRWA. And so this decision, of course, is an arbitrary one, and it means that the UNRWA is going to terminate all its tasks and its mandate in the Palestinian territories. In fact, right now, once more, we have a catastrophic condition in the Gaza Strip. And so this decision needs to be reconsidered and looked into once more, because the UNRWA is providing a lot of humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people and providing a lot of educational needs, as well provides a lot of basic commodities to the Palestinians. And so this decision needs to be reconsidered away from all diplomatic or political discords.
That was the writer and political researcher from Ramallah, Tamara Haddad. Thank you so much for your insights, Ms. Haddad, for sharing it with us on Q News. And we are back to you again, Hani.
Thank you very much, Salma. Ladies and gentlemen, now we move to the latest developments in Syria. Syrian Military Operations Chief Ahmed al-Shara has met with former Vice President Farouk al-Shara and invited him to attend an upcoming National Dialogue Conference. Sources have said that since arriving in Damascus, Ahmed al-Shara visited Farouk al-Shara at his residence in a suburb of Damascus to extend the invitation for the upcoming conference. Syrian Military Operations Chief Ahmed al-Shara has affirmed that Syria remains neutral and respects Lebanon's sovereignty and security. Al-Shara has met with former leader of the Lebanese Progressive Socialist Party, Walid Jumblat, in Damascus to discuss the future of the Syrian-Lebanese relations. Al-Shara highlighted Lebanon's need for a strong economy and political stability. He emphasized that Syria's government will not interfere in Lebanon's affairs. Iraqi Foreign Minister Fouad Hussein has expressed Iraq's hopes for an inclusive political process that leads to stability in Syria. During a meeting of the Iraq-Oman Joint Committee, Hussein emphasized that Baghdad is closely monitoring the situation in Syria. He stressed on the importance of helping the Syrian people build a stable and inclusive political process that represents all components of society, ensuring stability and reducing tensions. Hussein also reiterated Iraq's support for a ceasefire in Gaza and the urgent delivery of humanitarian aid to assist affected civilians. Israeli occupation forces have continued operations along the Syria-Israel ceasefire line in the Golan Heights after the United Nations Security Council extended its long-running peacekeeping mission between both sides. The UN mission was extended for 6 months, with the Security Council expressing concern that military activities in the area could escalate tensions. In Lebanon, caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati has met with the United Nations Special Coordinator for Lebanon and other UN officials to discuss recent developments, particularly in southern Lebanon, where Israeli violations of the ceasefire agreement continue. They discussed collaboration between the Lebanese government and the UN Office for Humanitarian Affairs, focusing on future projects to address Lebanon's social and economic challenges. Mikati also expressed gratitude to the United Nations for its ongoing support of Lebanon amid the continued Israeli aggression. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has stated that Tel Aviv will not allow Hezbollah members to return to villages in southern Lebanon, citing a threat to northern settlements. During a visit to an Israeli military site along the Lebanese border, Katz said if Hezbollah fails to withdraw beyond the Litani River or breaches the ceasefire agreement, they will be eliminated. He added that he would ensure the Israeli military maintains full control over the situation. These are all the news we have for now, but here's a reminder of what we've been covering. Israeli occupation forces kill over 5 Palestinians in a new massacre in Deir al-Balah, central Gaza. Occupation forces continue intensive attacks on Kamal Adwan Hospital, northern Gaza. And Syrian Military Operations Chief Ahmed al-Shara invites the former Vice President to attend the upcoming National Dialogue Conference. This concludes our news bulletin for this hour, but please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. I'm Henny Safe, thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.